The big news of the day is that Kevin Durant and the Nets have come to some form of agreement that they're going to stay together. And there's an irony to it, right? Part of the irony to it is it's Kobe Bryant's birthday. Kobe Bryant would have been 44 today. Obviously, anyone who, like myself, got to know Kobe Bryant, it's even more poignant and different than people who just saw him and appreciated him. He was like that. Kobe is an interesting dude now. The Kobe that tragically died in a helicopter crash was not the Kobe that showed up in L.A. as a 17-year-old, nor was he the Kobe that that got to a riff with Shaq where one of them had to go, or that Kobe Bryant wanted to be traded. People forget Kobe Bryant put it out there through Rick Bucher, if you remember, that he wanted out of L.A. and he was this close to becoming a Chicago Bull. Remember that? Then he was almost an L.A. Clipper. And ultimately, the Lakers refused to acquiesce. He stayed with the Lakers and won 2 more titles. And I don't know if that's where we are with Kevin Durant, but I do need to point something out. 2 parts to it. One, look, I realize this, that once you go to the I don't want to play for that coach, for that GM anymore, I don't want to be here, that's not calling the divorce lawyer, that's filing for divorce. Not every file ends up in a divorce, although not every marriage, even when you stay together, has to be perfectly happy and blissful. A lot of people are like, hey, let's just stay together till the kids get through school, and then, you'll do your thing, I'll do my thing. Does that bring pure happiness and joy and the best out of each other? Probably not, but it also doesn't upset the apple cart so much. There's also the emotions of your chili running hot, where you're Kevin Durant and you're mad because they're saying that your boy Kyrie Irving is not holding up his end of the bargain and you don't want to extend him. So by not extending him, you partner with your buddy and you're like, look, if you're not into him, then I'm not into you, and we're out. But the biggest point is this is not done anymore. And I believe it should be. And this is part of the discussion we'll have with Coach Gundy coming up. It's Doug Gottlieb Show on Fox Sports Radio, which is, hey, you sign a contract, you fulfill that contract. You sign a contract, you fulfill that contract. Tell me another place that this takes place on earth than you sign a contract for essentially 5 years. You're under contract before this year. Now it's 4 more years. He's under contract. And you're like, yeah, I don't want to work anymore. There's not a place on earth that would go like, oh, you're not happy? Well, let me find a place where you're happy for the contract that we negotiated for 4 more years. That doesn't. In college sports, you used to have to go into your coach and ask for your release. Otherwise, if you transferred, you would lose a year. And it was increasingly difficult, and you couldn't play. Not just would you lose a year, but then it would essentially be sitting 2 years. You couldn't play in conference. And then when you transferred out of conference, you would lose that year that you would be forced to sit out. It was extra punitive. And people said it wasn't fair, but it was the only point of leverage for coaches so that you couldn't just get mad and say, I'm out, deuces. And there were times in which coaches were like, I'm not giving you your release. You're fine here. Like, we worked with you, we recruited you, we coached you, we helped you through school, we put you in a good place. You're just not playing because you're a freshman or you're a sophomore or somebody ahead of you is better. You're going to play. You're going to be a great partner. You just got to have some patience, and we're not going to give you a release. Nobody can do that anymore. If you do it now, you're seen as you're holding a kid back, you're ruining his future, you're doing this, you're doing that, whatever. You can't do it anymore. That's what they're doing here. You know? They kind of did it in Seattle last year where Russell Wilson wanted out and then played 1 more year, and then ultimately he was gone. Remember the Green Bay Packers, Aaron Rodgers wanted out going back a year ago. Was that a play for more money? Did he win anyway? I think the answer is maybe. But the big misconception about the Nets is that this group won't work. It doesn't. I'm not going to tell you unequivocally it will work, but you have to give me any amount of data that shows it won't work. There isn't any that exists. Do you know why? Because they've never actually played together. Even if you go back to the previous year where you had a mishmash of guys, they were up 2-0 on the eventual champion Milwaukee Bucks. And stop me if you heard this before, Kyrie Irving got hurt. James Harden wasn't right because of his hamstring. And they still forced a Game 7. And Kevin Durant hit a game tire that could have been a game winner if not for his damn toe being on the line. Fast forward to this year, you have an exhausted Kevin Durant because he played in the Olympics. And after coming back from a midseason knee injury, he had to carry the team down the stretch to get them into the playoffs. Kyrie's not right because he's celebrating Ramadan. And Ben Simmons isn't healthy enough to play. And the midseason trade didn't give them a cohesive team. They've not only never had a big three on the floor in key moments in the past 2 years, but they've never actually had a training camp with the big three all healthy. Previous year, James Harden wasn't on the team until early in the year, midseason or so, less than midseason. This year, you didn't have Ben Simmons wasn't on the team, never played a game. You don't have training camp. You can't build a defensive system. You can't teach guys rotation. There's no cohesiveness. It had no chance of working. So the Nets, by my estimation, are saying, look, we don't know if it works. We still think it will. We don't know if Steve Nash can coach, and we don't know if you and Kyrie can win a title. We don't know if how Ben Simmons fits with all you guys. We think on paper it's all going to work. And these past 2 years have taught Steve Nash how to be a better coach, have showed you that you need better teammates and who you need around. Have taught Kyrie Irving, man, you can't do the Ramadan thing in the playoffs. It's just too exhausting. And have shown Ben Simmons, we need you on the floor. And you need Joe Harris as well. You can say it won't work, but you can't say it hasn't worked. And the Nets are saying that exact same thing. It may not work, but you know what? You're under contract. Kyrie's under contract. So let's see if it works before we break it up. And on a day in which we celebrate the life of Kobe Bean Bryant, we should remember Kobe once said he wanted out of L.A. The Lakers didn't acquiesce, and they won 2 titles there shortly thereafter.